Hello, guys. Thank you for tuning in on the second episode of the podcast. I'm glad to invite my friend Thomas out for this one. Thomas and I met at work. He was one of my first friends, and when we started work together, we were in this cohort for IBM, and it was about 22 of us. And so, yeah, we met there at, I think, Mr. Purple Happy Hour, was that
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Okay. Yeah, so happy to have him on. We've been friends for now 3 years now, and he now works at J.P. Morgan. So happy for him. Today we'll just be talking about his work, travel, a little bit about the East Coast versus West Coast culture because he grew up in San Mateo here and moved to the East Coast for college and work. And then we'll be talking about his personal finance, and then as well as some other topics if we have time for it. Yeah, so Thomas, do you want to give like a little background about your work and how you got interested in the what you wanted to do when you got out of college?
yeah, sure thing, happy to. And yeah, I'm also really glad that Owen is trying out podcasting. Um, I know that he'll find success in anything that he tries to do. But yeah, so originally started at IBM, same time as Owen. Um, Owen joined as a developer, I joined as a consultant at the time. I thought that when I started college, I wanted to be a data scientist. So I really focused more of my coursework and kind of like my networking internship experiences on trying to be a data scientist. I was doing like data analyst internships, taking a lot of like data science courses on sites like DataCamp. However, I found that work to be not as dynamic as I wanted it to be. Like you kind of own the same dashboards and reporting over and over again. And so I decided to get involved in my campus's consulting group when I was in school. So we did a lot of pro bono consulting for SMBs, mostly around the Boston area. And that led to me going more towards the path of tech consulting. When I started in consulting, I felt like the type of projects that I enjoyed the most were the product management projects. And so I decided kind of around like the 1.5 year mark. So like about halfway between the time I met Owen and today that I wanted to really pivot out of consulting and do more product management work full time. My experiences with consulting were all with financial services clients, so it really made sense for me to join either a fintech or the one of the product teams at a bank. So that's kind of how I was able to use my college internships, also my experience at IBM with Owen, and really was able to break into product as a non-technical person. I think that part is pretty important. I didn't study computer science, but maybe it's something we can talk about later in the podcast, in regards to like maybe what type of background is necessary for my type of work.
Yeah, that's so you took, I guess, these courses and projects in college, and that actually is what made you interested in that. That's really cool because I feel like I never did something like that to advance my career in terms of that. All I did was study, so yeah.
Study's not a bad thing.
No, but application obviously is important if you're looking to work.
Yeah, that's true. But I think that without what you learn in the classroom, you'll have nothing to apply. You kind of need both. I think like both need to exist. You need to pick up the tools you need from class, but you need projects and work experience to apply those tools.
Yeah, 100%, especially with, I mean, I think it started way before we were entering the workforce, but for junior people that just are starting out to work, all of the positions, the requirements are 5 years of experience.
Yeah.
When none of us, at least not me, had experience in doing that, nor internships. So I think it's really hard, and it's really important, like you mentioned, to be able to have internships or have a job while you work, a job that's relevant to what you're going to do potentially, or just any experience, potentially better than a restaurant job. But
Yeah.
that's really cool. And then, so did you interview for any fintech companies, or what was that? What kind of job were you looking for after IBM?
Yeah, so after IBM, I cast a pretty wide net actually. So um, a lot of entry level or associate product manager roles, they ask for CS majors, or at least if you didn't major in CS, you have some sort of software development experience. So I also kind of hedged my application pool and applied to corporate strategy roles instead. Some of these were at fintechs, so like companies you might recognize like Capital One, American Express, like a lot of these companies that have really good digital experiences, like really good mobile apps, really good desktop user journeys for their products. But of course, like also the banks. I feel like all of the banks have pretty established teams, but they also do work on a lot of new products to try to hold their position as the incumbents in the finance space. So yeah, cast a wide net. Ended up getting the role with JP Morgan. I feel that I was pretty lucky to have a good network at the firm across all of their lines of businesses. So I got to, I came into like the interview process, I feel, with like a lot more context than maybe other applicants, since I knew about their corporate investment bank, but I also had like a good amount of context behind their consumer and community banking. So yeah, that's kind of how I approached my second job search after my original job search, from transitioning from college to my first job.
How did you get the context from what they do in terms of ba- past what they do from a user perspective, what we all see? Like, how did you know all of the what you just mentioned? Did you just do a lot of research, or did you have a lot of connections that you hung out with and talked about a lot?
Well, I like didn't know everything. I would say like a good amount of it came from people I knew from college. So um, a good amount of people from BU ended up in the corporate and investment banking side of JP Morgan. So they call this internally CIB. And all the CIB people, so these are the people that work directly, they're like client facing. So they work on like large transactions of money. They work on like M&As. So it's like business to business banking and underwriting. Um, but I also knew a couple of people that were actually like more junior than me, but they were entering rotational programs within consumer and community banking. So this is like the side of JPM that's like a lot more similar to what people like us would normally interact with. So things like Chase banking, like their asset and wealth management services, if you like want someone to manage your money, things like checking accounts, savings accounts, CDs, and different investment vehicles that like you and I have access to. So got to know more about that side. And in terms of like personal experience, like using JP Morgan Chase products and services, this is the side that I personally interacted with more. So like I have a couple Chase credit cards. I knew about those user journeys. I used the app a lot. So all of this stuff also helped me kind of come in with some knowledge about the firm and about their products and services.
Yeah, that's really cool. And then, quick question: how many companies did you have interviews for? Or yeah, and then how many companies did you interview for?
Oh geez. In terms of like, or application wise, definitely like hundreds, if not thousands.
Yeah.
I started applying for new jobs in January 2024. So and I just started this new job 2 weeks ago. So like it took like about a year and a half to just land something else, like a second role. In terms of companies I interviewed with from like all of those applications, like literally less than 10. So like it was pretty difficult to get looks from companies like during these past couple of years. But I feel like the ones that I ended up having more success with were the companies that I was like actually within the range of experience for. So there were like a couple reaches that were like asking for 3 to 5 years of experience, and I was applying when I still had like 1.5 years or 2 years, and so like even if I got an interview, I might not like get the full ability to move forward because they have someone with more experience that might be a better fit, and like rightly so in my opinion. But I feel like once I got my first promotion at IBM, got the senior title, was getting closer to the 3 years experience mark, I got like a lot more interviews, and that's when started getting into really good talks with JP Morgan and landed this role.
Yeah. And then in total, how many interviews did you do for JP Morgan?
JP Morgan was 4 interviews. So first one was a recruiter screen. So really just trying to catch any red flags. This one is like not really like a true interview that you really have to prep for. I think they kind of just were like, yeah, so like why you're interested in the role, like tell me a little bit about what you're doing in your current role, and like why do you want to like work at JP Morgan as well? What do you know about JP Morgan? A little bit like just kind of like trying to suss out your motivations for applying to the role, and then they like kind of just check off like, this role is like in office full-time 5 days a week, are you okay with that? And like, okay, this role is based in New York, are you okay with that? So kind of these like also screening questions. So that was pretty simple. And then the next 3 interviews were all with the direct team, which I actually really appreciated. They don't really have like an interview system where random managers are assigned to interview you that don't even like really know the product that you might be working with. So that was great. I spoke with someone who was the executive director at the time. He's now the managing director for the product, and he's like actually my skip manager now. And then 2 of the product managers on the team, and one of which was originally going to be my hiring manager, but ended up doing a lateral move to another team. So like in terms of like the actual behavior interviews, they were directly with product managers or directors on the team, and I was actually able to ask them a lot of questions as well about the work that they're doing, some of their priorities for 2025, etc. And timing wise, these mostly took place in like November, December, and then they had a hiring freeze for like most of Q1, and then they didn't like reach back out until April. So
April of last year?
April of this year.
Oh, this year. Okay.
Yeah, so interviews started like November, December, and then they didn't reach back out until April of this year because of the hiring freeze in Q1. So had to really like, kind of check out other options during that time. But it ended up working out. They reached back out, and they were happy to make an offer.
Do you know if that was a hiring freeze across the entire company?
Yeah.
Okay.
Company-wide hiring freeze. But in terms of like when the freeze was lifted, that was kind of staggered across their business units. So my business unit happened to open up around April time.
Gotcha. And then do you want to speak a little bit about what you do at your current role now?
Yeah, sure. So my official title is Senior Product Associate. And the product that I work with at JP Morgan is the Wires and International Payments product. So this falls within the consumer and community bank. So banking for like regular people like you and me. And the product that we own for Wires is both the mobile experience, so the process and the navigation that you would use in the mobile app to send a wire to, let's say, your friend in China or your family in China, like any country, even sending wires to like people in the US, sending wires to someone who you're trying to buy a house from, like sending a down payment, right, to a bank. So anything involving wires and international payments, my team owns it. And the team is kind of broken down between like general management and product strategy. This is where I sit with my manager. But we also have a team that is more focused on like the delivery side. So there's a team that owns the product, and then there's a team there's a team that owns the platform, not the product. So they stand up the Wires platform, so everything under the hood for like what is going on when you like send a wire. And then there's a team that takes care of all of the digital and UI portions of the experience. So they do the wireframes, they work on all of the Figma for the Wires experience. So it's kind of like that four-pronged approach for the team. But I'm on the general management and product strategy side. So we focus a lot more on like customer complaints, prioritizing features for the Wires products. So we help a lot with like the the planning, both quarterly planning and also sprint planning, and making sure that we always have healthy backlog, and making sure that when we do get customer complaints, they're like bucketed into themes, and that we remember these themes throughout our working year.
I presume you guys don't get, or do you get a lot of complaints? Because I feel when I think I've sent a wire maybe one or two times through Bank of America, and I guess they did have a button where you could submit feedback and stuff of your overall experience when sending a wire. So do you guys get a lot of feedback from people when they send wires?
Yeah, a good amount, like a couple hundred, if not a couple thousand complaints per month. But when you think about the scale of like all the wires that JP Morgan Chase sends, or at least serves as the middleman for, like it's a pretty good success rate. It's like really like a negligible amount of complaints being raised compared to the total amount of wires sent. However, like the team really sees feedback as a gift, and it's really important that these, and usually complaints come from edge cases, right? Like I feel like with any sort of app, unless it's like a major downage, like usually if something goes wrong, like someone triggered an edge case, but these edge cases need to be considered and also like risk accepted if it's not something that the team can immediately like prioritize a fix for. They might put it on the back burner because like, okay, this only happens if you follow this like really specific navigational journey through the app, and you happen to select these set of filters. So yeah, like complaints are important, and the team does a good job of like prioritizing them based off of the severity, and also based off of like how feasible it is to like squeeze it into the next sprint. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. So you have, how do you break down the severity? Do you guys, obvious, I would think you guys take the highest severity ones and prioritize them
Yeah.
immediately, and then you take the smaller ones and put them on the backlog. And how do you, I guess, determine how long you should wait till, I guess, addressing someone's complaint like that?
Well, I'll start with the end of that question. Like complaints are addressed immediately, right? Like if someone files a complaint, like let's say they sent a wire, it was seemingly approved, but then the money wasn't received on the other end, those are handled immediately. Like there's a wires research team that is dedicated to like actually like look into these cases, and they will provide the customer with an answer. But like in terms of actually like taking that feedback and disseminating it across our product team, we actually use generative AI to group like each complaint into like a theme of some sort. So there's these like pre-established themes that the complaints get bucketed into, and some themes are more stringent than the others. Yeah.
I presume the use of generative AI was not an easy process, right? Because at my Amex client right now, I'm on the architecture playbook grading, and that's our use case that we're doing, and it falls under the Gen AI strategy under Amex, and one of my coworkers is working on the Gen AI Council and Architecture Review Board, and one of them was a buy versus build assessment that they had, versus basically evaluating whether it was better to build their own chat model around a LLM like Gemini or OpenAI, and that just happened, and we've been using LLMs for almost 3 years now. So I'm assuming the approval process of using an LLM at a bank like Chase is not easy and very long, right? Or
Well, the process of using this LLM was already there before I joined. However, it's not like an external one. Like it's not like we're like manually loading things into ChatGPT and having them arranged into themes. We have like an internal LLM that is used for this grouping, and they're already like sort of like wrapped up enough so that it's able to sanitize any sort of confidential information that you might be putting in it. So it's like pretty similar to what you mentioned with maybe your clients. Like everyone is kind of trying to create their own like GPT wrapper that is like that protects client confidentiality, that protects customer confidentiality. So yeah, it's like no different than any of those really.
Yeah. And just a funny, you is they also restrict a lot of things on your computer. Basically, you can't go on anything besides what they want you to go on.
Like within reason, like you can't go onto like gaming sites, of course. You can't like go onto anything that's like not safe for work. I actually honestly haven't tried doing that much weird stuff like on my computer. Like I'm able to access like social media for the most part, but I assume like they just wrap stuff up within reason. It's definitely like not as loose as maybe like a tech company. Like I feel like IBM was pretty loose in terms of like what you could access on your device, but yeah, like JPM just pretty much the same as like any other financial services firm. Like it's a very reasonable set of parameters. But like I do have like my own device that I use for work, and so if I did need to like let's say I'm like working in the office and like I really need to like file my taxes or something, or I need to do something on my on like a personal site, then I could still use like my laptop and like seamlessly switch between like using my VDI and then using like my unprotected browser. So it works pretty well. Like I haven't run into any time or any occasion where I was like, oh man, I wish I had access to this site. Yeah. So it's not a huge deal.
You guys use a VDI to access or to log on to your company systems and stuff?
Yeah. So like when I'm working on my laptop, like let's say I'm like not in the office at the time, I'm like logging on from home to do some stuff, then yeah, I just use a VDI. But when I work from the office, it's actually really nice. Like there's just desktops at every single desk. They're pretty good. No real issues with like computing power with these desktops. So I just like log into the desktop and work from there. So just immediately just go right in.
And then this new role is quite different from your old role, right? Where at IBM you were traveling every week almost, right?
Yeah, like ways of working wise definitely different. No, first of all, I feel like the overarching thing like across all IBM projects that's different is like obviously my role now is not client facing anymore. There are client facing roles at JP Morgan, like in the investment bank, for example. But yeah, I'm now completely just like I'm just on a product team. Like I don't have a client. We work to like, improve the profit and loss of our own product. So it's almost like you have your own thing to worry about, and you don't have to worry about like too many other people's concerns if it doesn't affect your product somehow, or if it's not a dependency of your product or a dependency of your team. So it's kind of nice to be able to have that like laser focus on what your team is working on. But then yeah, like regarding the travel, like obviously like 5 days in office right now is not the best, but it certainly beats like having to travel each week.
Yeah, I mean, I presume being at home every night is probably outweighs the benefit, but you do miss out on the points, right?
Yeah, that's true, but I feel like I've gotten enough points to do what I need to do for like my short-term travel. Like all of my travel from my last project at IBM before I left was able to fund a 2-week trip to Asia. So like it's I would say that's all I'm like completely okay with what I got out of it, and I really don't wish that I stayed any longer. Like it's nice, but it definitely is like I would much rather like be home, be able to like hang out with my girlfriend and be able to like sleep in my own bed, and also just I feel like it's a huge opportunity cost to me when you're paying rent as well, but you're like not even staying in your apartment for the majority of the week. So
Yeah.
so I'm happy with the change.
So you mentioned a 2-week trip to Asia, so what's the next trip that you guys are gonna take? Is it gonna be big or what?
Yeah, so in terms of like what's currently planned, the Asia trip is our next trip. My girlfriend and I were going to Tokyo, Taipei, and then swinging back into Japan to go to Osaka, Kyoto. So um, it's probably going to be a pretty packed itinerary, but I feel like we'll have enough time to do everything we want to do in each of the cities, because it's like 5 nights in Tokyo, 4 nights in Taiwan, and then another 3 nights in Osaka. So I feel like we'll be able to fit in a good amount of stuff. Gonna be able to do some pretty cool shopping. I feel like I'm really excited to go watch shopping, go thrift shopping, and also try out a lot of restaurants and coffee shops. Yeah.
So you're not taking the Shinkansen from Tokyo to Kyoto? You're going from Tokyo to Taipei and then to Kyoto and then leaving from there?
So that is the itinerary, yes, but we still will have an opportunity to take the Shinkansen because our return flight is out of Tokyo. So once we're done with the Osaka leg, which is the last leg, we're going to take the Shinkansen to Tokyo and then leave from Tokyo.
The same day?
Not the same day, no. I feel like that's too risky.
One night, yeah.
Yeah, we'll do like just one last night in Tokyo, but like we're basically not going to be spending that much time in like the city that day because we're going to be, arriving, probably going to spend most of the day in Osaka, take the Shinkansen to Tokyo, and then just like sleep. Next day, head to the airport, go home. Yeah.
So what was the thinking when you made this trip, breaking it up in 2 parts between Japan? Why did you do that?
Yeah, so it has a weekend in the middle of the duration. And that weekend we felt was like a really good opportunity to go to Taiwan. My girlfriend has family there, so might be able to see some family. And obviously, like, they won't be on vacation, so the weekend is a good time to meet people. Don't want to drag them out of work. And and also, like, if you break up your trip into as many like 5-night splits as possible, it's the best for making the most out of your points. Like with Marriott, for example, if you book 5 nights, no, if you book 4 nights with points, you get the 5th night free. So oftentimes it's better to stay in a location for that full 5 nights instead of like hopping around too much if you can control it. Like obviously we weren't able to do that with like the other legs of our trip, but for the first Tokyo, like we are able to do that 5-night trick. So like we're only really spending 4 nights worth of points to get a full 5-night stay.
And you're staying in Marriott everywhere?
Everywhere except Osaka. So everything else is booked with Marriott points. We're staying in like a hotel, like the Courtyard in Ginza, and then once we go to Taipei, we're probably gonna stay at the Courtyard in Taipei as well, the downtown one, and then what else? Oh yeah, like Marriott by the airport for when we're going to fly from Taipei to Osaka. But then once we get to the Osaka leg, I'm actually switching over to IHG. And this is because Chase was running a promotion where if you, they were pretty much running it was like an 80% transfer bonus from like your Chase points to your IHG points. So that was like a no-brainer to at least like book some leg of our trip with IHG because like you're getting almost double value for the points that you're transferring.
What is the 80% transfer bonus?
So like usually if you it's like a 1-to-1 transfer, right? Like if you transfer 1,000 Chase points, you'll get 1,000 Marriott points, right? But then with IHG, since they're running that promotion, if I transfer 1,000 Chase points, I'm getting 1,800 IHG points. So it's like almost double.
That's a lot. That's awesome.
So we are staying at like one of the Holiday Inns in like downtown Osaka during that time. So
Wow.
yeah.
How do you find out about all these rewards? Do you have a notifications for all of them or what?
So notifications are pretty popular. There are a lot of sites that just query award travel like constantly and send you alerts, but they often cost money. So, and I'm also like not too obsessed about like my cash per redemption like ratios. Like I don't like there's some people when they book award travel, they will like only book it if they're getting like a super good value. Like the point equivalent of value is much lower than the cash than what it would be in cash. Like it's not always realistic, especially if you're traveling during peak travel season. So what I do is I just like do manual searches. Like I'll have like a date range that I want to travel, obviously, and then I'll like check a couple days before and after that range just to find like the best time to go around that time, and then I'll like transfer over the points necessary to make it happen.
When are you guys going?
So we're going end of this like last week of December, first week of January. So that's obviously a pretty popular time to travel.
So you're not spending holidays with, or I guess Christmas with your parents?
Well, it's the day after Christmas we're leaving.
All that.
But we don't currently have any like Christmas family plans this year. So we'll see.
And I'm assuming you're gonna fly out from SF?
No, we're flying out from Newark. We actually got a direct flight from Newark to Tokyo Narita. But on the way back, we have to do a layover in LA. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's a really long flight.
Yeah, it's like 14 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
business class or?
No, I wasn't able to do business class because all of my points were with United. I racked up a ton of miles with United during my work travel. So I wanted to really leverage like that existing pool that I already had. Unfortunately, like there weren't that many code share flights around that time. So like code share is when you are within like United's booking tool, but you want to book like a flight with another airline through United. They're like the code share flights are usually released in very limited quantities, and also sometimes at the very last minute, like 2 weeks prior to travel. So let's say like for example, ANA is a code share partner with United. They are part of the Star Alliance, which is why they do code share. They are super stingy with releasing flights for United customers to book. So I don't obviously want to take the risk of waiting until 2 weeks out to book a 2-week trip to Asia. So I'm okay just booking an economy flight with United. But typically, if you do have the flexibility, it's always better to book with a non-American airline since they have better point redemptions for business and first class flights. Instead of using dynamic pricing, they have a fixed award chart. So like with United, a first class flight can be like over 300,000 points one way. If it's like peak season, popular destination. However, if I were to book that same flight on like ANA, it would only be like 80,000 points for like first class one way. So like literally it can be like a third, but you just have to understand that there's like thousands of other really travel savvy people that are hunting for these same redemptions, and they might be actually paying for the tools that automatically notify them and stuff. So like as soon as these flights come out, they get snatched up.
Yeah.
But also like you need to be willing to travel at some like really weird times to get these flights as well, like to get it while supplies last at least.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I never look at rewards. So.
You should give it a try.
Because I feel like for me, I don't even have Amex because I don't spend that much, at least for me, to justify at least a $400 yearly thing. The fee card that I have is the Amex Blue Cash Preferred, and I use that for groceries. And that's about it. Because I guess I could if I mean, this equipment was over $1,000, so I guess I could have gotten a good amount of rewards from it and some other stuff that I bought previously. So maybe I'll think about it. I don't know.
I think that anyone who eats out at least once a week and buys groceries as well should probably consider an Amex Gold at the very least. Just because you have quadruple points on both dining and groceries.
Yeah.
So it's like literally the best possible card you can have for food expenses. So you end up getting a lot of points from those categories, but they also have other things that they throw in that pretty much pay for the card itself if you like already are doing these activities. So for example, you get like a $50 Resi credit each half year. So like you know, in the New York metro area, right, there's a lot of restaurants that use Resi as their reservation platform. If you book a restaurant through Resi and you have an Amex Gold card, you'll get $50 off of your bill each half year.
Oh, once per half year.
Once per half year, every 6 months. That's already $100 in value right there. That's just like
just go eat once.
That's just free. Just reserve one dinner.
Yeah.
Right.
Every 6 months.
Every 6 months. That's all you need to do, and that's already $100 worth of value.
Oh my god.
With just that. But then you also get like $10 in Uber Cash each month. So like if you either take an Uber or order Uber Eats at least once a month, that's another $10 of value per month, adding up to $120 of value a year.
Yeah, see all the other promotions
Yeah.
that DoorDash, Uber Eats, stuff like that. I don't, and then streaming as well. I don't use any of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, when I'm traveling, I've used it a lot recently. But when I'm in New York, just living, I try to limit my expenses through just buying groceries and then maybe once a week go eat out. But me eating out is not me going to more than $50. It's more like $30 if that.
Oh, okay. And you're usually eating alone.
No, I don't go out to eat alone. I
Okay,
go out
okay.
with friends. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's a better experience with friends. So.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, in that case, like if you feel like you won't use like the Uber credit, like Capital One Saver card is a really good card to look into.
Mm-hmm.
You get like very similar grocery and dining earnings, but without like the other bells and whistles. So obviously, like it brings down the annual fee a little bit. So Capital One Saver card, look into it. Saver as in like savoring food, not like savor like you like to save money, not like that.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll look into it. Capital One Saver.
Yeah. SAVOR.
SAVOR. Savor. Also, Becca, your street is called what? What do you pronounce your
Seville.
street? It's a Spanish word. Seville.
Seville. Yeah.
Why do you pronounce it Seville though?
Anglicized.
Okay. That's funny. Because everything in California is.
Yeah, there's a lot of Spanish influence here, but like Sevilla is like I've never really heard. I've heard of Sevilla, like the city in Spain, but like.
Oh god.
Like Seville is I've never heard of that, so maybe it's just the masculine version of Sevilla.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very cool. Do you want to switch over to, I guess, personal finance?
Yeah, sure. We already started talking about some cards, so yeah, why not?
Yeah, I think you guys are on a pretty, I guess, you guys are very knowledgeable, I would say. From my perspective, every time I talk, you guys seem to have a journey, a goal set in mind. So you want to talk a little bit about what you guys' goal is in life in terms of financial standards?
Well, I feel like goals are always changing.
Okay.
Like once you reach a first goal, you have to set another one. But I guess the closest term goal is buying a home. And in terms of buying a house, like we want to do it after we get married so that we get more advantageous mortgage rates, and also it's like not under just like one of our names, it's like under both of our names. So that's like a big goal. But in terms of like achieving these goals, at least like my mindset is definitely just to automate as much of my saving and investing as possible, so that I don't have to think about it and I don't forget to do it each month. So I use an app called Wealthfront, which puts all of my finances in one place, tracks my 401k contributions, tracks my Roth IRA contributions. It also tracks my brokerage account, my HSA. So pretty much like any investing account, it has it all in one place, which just like makes it pretty easy to monitor how you're doing. But it also like keeps all my credit cards in one place, and I have a lot of credit cards, so it's like
How many?
I have like 8 right now, so it's really good to just see which ones are like which ones I'm like currently charging to, so that I can like make sure that I keep my balance low on those, because I try to pay off balances immediately and keep my utilization rate like under 1% for like my total credit. But yeah, I think like if you set all of this stuff aside already and you like automate your deposits into your investment accounts, and if you have a job, you probably already like get automated contributions into your retirement accounts. Like I feel like it just takes off a lot of the intimidation that is often associated with finance. Like I think a common misconception is that like, oh, you have to be some sort of like math finance genius to invest. You have to be like one of those movie type geniuses, but like no, not really. All you need is time. So like, and the best time to start is now, so that you can, or the best time to start was yesterday. Second best time is now. So you always want to make sure you invest as early as possible, so that your money can compound, and you can like kind of ride the wave of the next couple of decades to have your wealth achieve on its own, have your wealth like accumulate on its own, and also like building up a solid base now will help you ride out any like economic uncertainty that might happen, right? Like if you didn't have a diversified portfolio, like the tariffs would have like really would have really done a number on you. So just try to make it as quick and painless as possible, and then whatever money is left over, it's kind of, I feel like you feel better using it to either like treat yourself or to take care of some other needs that you have that maybe you've been putting off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in terms of a diversified portfolio, for me, I have crypto, stock market. That's about it. What is there anything else that you have that you would recommend?
Probably some bonds as well. Maybe like 10% in bonds. I think obviously like at our age, right? Like we're not that old. We're only 25. Like it's a good time to put a lot of money in stocks. Something diversified already, like the S&P, like a S&P 500 index fund is really good. Just because that's like, you're pretty much guaranteed like at least an average of 7% growth each year. Some years grow a lot, some years don't grow as much, but I mean, you take in like the past couple of decades, about 7% a year. But also like you can allocate a little bit of your brokerage towards like small caps and also international or like emerging market funds. But yeah, I would say like if you're like 60% allocated to the S&P 500, you really can't go wrong. And with crypto as well, like crypto is a fine investment. I think it's good to have a little bit of exposure to it, but like you definitely don't expose yourself like over 10 to 20%. I think you're kind of like getting into like gambling territory if you.
Do you really think so? Because
I think so.
I mean, with Trump and the administration recently, they made that the wallet, or I guess the government wallet for the 5 coins now. Some 3 of them obviously aren't very stable, but there's also, I've recently been hearing countries whose currency is not feasible to use, and so they use cryptocurrency as their national currency now. And so it seems like a lot of people are more and more so, countries are believing in cryptocurrency now more than ever, especially with these countries using it, such as, I think it was, what was the country where the inflation is just exorbitantly high?
Like Greece, Argentina.
And then a Latin American country as well, I forget, Cuba. And then some other South American countries are using it. But yeah, all that to say, I feel like the more we go on, the more widely adopted cryptocurrency will become, and thus more stable. And then you have the USDC, which is the US current digital version of the currency, which is very. People have said it's very stable. It's not a very volatile like Bitcoin and Ethereum. So I guess that's what they're using, not necessarily Bitcoin and Ethereum, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like any investment vehicle is fine as long as you're not all in on it. Like 10 to 20% in some sort of like diversified crypto fund can be good. Like you're exposed to maybe the increase in use cases that you just brought up for cryptocurrency around the world. So like you'll win a bit, but you also like won't lose too much if if people eventually find out that it's all a sham, which I'm still a little dubious about. I just don't feel like anyone is truly using cryptocurrency, like not like the common people, the middle class, like unless you're an enthusiast, no one's like using cryptocurrency as like their main source of payment or their main source of wealth. But yeah, I think it's fine. Just don't go all in on it. Don't go all in on anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, you're. I think
Yeah.
you're totally right because there. I mean, to this day, there's still no. For how long cryptocurrency has been out, there's still fees. You can't. There's like always market fees to be able to buy cryptocurrency. It's not free, like the stock market is.
Yeah.
So that's a barrier to entry, for people in low middle class or lower. But yeah. What are there any other advice you would have for maybe someone that doesn't have a stable income in terms of building wealth and like what they should be focusing on? Because I think it's easy for people that have a really good job, have a high paying job. They can, and it varies based on your personality and what you like to do in life. But if you have that high paying job, it's easy to take a lot of that income and put it aside. So what would you say for people that don't have that opportunity?
I would say if you do have debt, prioritize your highest interest debt first before you pay off your lower interest debt. And when you make payments towards debt, make sure you're clarifying with your loan provider that you're paying for principal in addition to the actual interest. There are some very sneaky fiduciaries out there that won't really like make it clear at face value like what you're actually paying for when you make a debt payment. So there are people who think I know people who pay their student loans and they thought they were paying down principal, but the whole time their like minimum payments were only going towards the interest on the debt. So like it was really kind of like a sinkhole, right, for your money, because like the amount of interest that's added on each month, it's like literally like based off of how much principal you have left, assuming you have like a fixed rate loan. So yeah, prioritize high interest debt. If you have like a really big piece of debt that's high interest, you can also consider taking out like a low interest loan to almost do like it's like a rate exchange, right? So you take a low interest loan, so pretty much the provisioner of that loan will pay off the remaining principal and interest on your existing loan, but in your new one you'll be able to pay off the rest of it at like a lower interest rate. That's also like a pretty good option. And for those that don't have debt but feel like you're not building any wealth, I would say like a little bit, like just like getting into the habit of like automating a little bit of investing each month, at least contributing enough to your retirement to get like a company match if that's available, is a really good thing to do. Like assuming you do have like a traditional job, like definitely read into like what benefits your company provides from a financial perspective. There's like a lot of things that I for sure like didn't learn too much about from a benefits perspective until I started reading more. But like yeah, definitely look into any sort of like tax advantaged account you can find, and any sort of ways that your company is willing to help you. Things like travel spending accounts, like having your monthly transit taken out of your paycheck so that you don't have to pay taxes on that income. Things like a high yield no, not a high yield savings account, things like a health savings account where you're able to contribute money towards medical expenses that have to be double tax advantaged, meaning that you're contributing money after tax. So no, you're contributing money pre-tax, and you're not, so you don't have to like pay taxes on your contributions, but you're also not taxed when you spend that money on your medical expenses.